Medela Motion InBra wearable pump isn't working, it feels weak, or your output has suddenly dropped, here are some of my practical Medela Motion troubleshooting tips that you can try on your pump. So within one of my how to use the Medela Motion videos, quite a few of the comments have come through that people are having trouble with the suction, no suction. So what can we do if we have low suction, weak suction, or no suction at all? Firstly is make sure you have adequate seals. Now, this is one of the problems I think a lot of people are having, especially with the Medela Motion, is it's actually quite a firm fit to attach your flange to the collection cup. So when you place it on, you want to not just push it in lightly, you want to give it a really firm push to make sure that it has a proper seal around it. Any air gaps here is going to lead to a loss of suction or no suction. Our pumps work on a vacuum, so we need to make sure that we have these really amazing seals in place or we won't get suction. So first one to check is your flange and collection cup have that amazing seal on them. Then we also want to check that our diaphragm and valve have been attached properly. So make sure that when you put your diaphragm in, it has you don't just place it on top, you push it down nice and firm. Make sure you don't have any little gaps. Make sure this is sitting nice and flat and you have looped it over properly. Your valve flap should just open and close. If this starts becoming loose and you're finding that it doesn't have a great fit anymore, it is time to replace it. Being silicone parts and the most highly used during your pumping session, these will wear, especially over time. The more pumping you do, the more they'll wear and tear. Should be replaced around every 2 to 3 months. So keep that in mind. If you're suddenly losing suction, I would have a look at replacing this diaphragm/valve part. Okay, another one to just keep in mind if we're feeling that we don't have adequate suction, make sure your pump parts are dry before you are putting them together. Any moisture that can bead in the rim, that can lead to a little bit of air getting pulled in. So make sure that we don't have any moisture again, nowhere for air to get trapped and break that seal. We also, when we talk about seals, these are the ones that are critical with your pump parts, but we also attach the pump to our breast, and we need to make sure where it's attached around our breast that we also have a really great seal. So this means making sure that our nipple is centrally aligned. We want it to have a great fit around this flange tunnel entrance against our areola. We then also want to make sure that we're wearing a really nice firm fitting pumping bra. So being a wearable pump, we are going to be moving around. We want this held in place so we have this fit around our breast tissue. So making sure that this is held in place while we're moving around is going to hopefully help that we don't have a sudden movement and lose that suction. Right, so that's if you have low suction or it's weak. But what happens if it's not emptying you properly or you just have low output? What can we do to help improve that? One of those is your flange sizing. So this comes in a 24mm flange size, but this doesn't mean that this is the right fit for you. This just means that our nipple size needs to correlate with the flange sizing of the tunnel. How do we know what's the right size for us? You'll need something like a nipple ruler. This is one of the easiest ways to do it. You can either measure your nipple, or I find these little cutouts are honestly the easiest. We're going to want to make sure that our nipple is erect, and then we simply slide it over our nipple until we reach a sizing that we can slide over our nipple without showing too much of the areola at the base. So it should just slide nice and freely down to the base of our nipple. If we have too much areola drawing in, that is going to cause a few problems. So if my finger was a nipple, I would go for this 24 millimeter diameter flange. But say I had a slightly smaller nipple, then I might choose something a lot smaller. And that's where our flange inserts come into play. So these have a little sizing on them. I don't know if you can see this one. Oh, it's just got a 1. Sorry, this one doesn't have it on it, which is quite annoying. Oh, no, there you go. This is a 15 millimeter. That can be a bit tricky to see. So this, if I had a 15 millimeter size nipple, I simply take the flange insert, place it in to the flange tunnel, nice and firm. Again, we want to have this great seal. And that then reduces the flange tunnel size down to the 15 millimeter. Why does flange size have so much impact? Well, we really want our nipple to be moving nice and freely through that flange tunnel while we're pumping. If it is too small, we're going to get friction. It's not going to be able to pull our nipple through and mimic that sucking that our baby has when they're breastfeeding, and it's going to rub on the side, causing a lot of discomfort and pain. If it is too large, then we're going to be drawing in our areola, and again, that's going to cause compression on tissue that we're not wanting to compress. So again, discomfort, low output, really important to make sure you have the correct flange size. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that your your nipple size does change throughout your pumping journey. The further into postpartum you get, the smaller your nipple size tends to get. So you might start out as a 24 millimeter, and by the end of your pumping journey, you might only be a 19 millimeter. So make sure you're regularly checking. If you do have a low output suddenly, then flange insert the flange size is definitely one to be checking. The other one is your actual settings on your pump. When it comes to pumping, there is no one size fits all. So my recommendation is always start with your stimulation mode. These are the shorter, faster suctions for initiating your letdown. And then after around 1 to 2 minutes, when your letdown has come in, we switch over to the expression mode. Now, these are the longer, deeper pulls for drawing out our breast milk. With the Medela Motion, you only have these 2 options to choose from. So it does limit our flexibility, means also that we need to manually change between these 2 options to create our own pumping rhythms. If you're finding that you're having low output, you might start off fast after your initial letdown with your output, but you might find after 5-10 minutes your flow is really slowing down. I recommend then switching over back to this stimulation mode and try for another letdown. A lot of mums find that they respond better to multiple letdowns during their pumping session. So you may find that you work best on a 2 minutes of stimulation followed by 8 minutes of expression, 2 minutes of stimulation followed by 8 minutes of expression, 2 minutes of stimulation followed by 8 minutes of expression. Some mums find that they work better with that faster stimulation mode, so might need 5 minutes of stimulation and then 5 minutes of expression. It's really about finding a pattern that works best for you, and that's really going to be a trial and error. But if you are seeing that milk flow slow after a period on the expression, try switching back to the stimulation mode and getting another letdown. See what happens. The other one is also making sure that you're starting low on your suction strength. So the suction strength is how strong those pulls are. I think there's a bit of a myth where people think the strongest setting, so right on level 9, I'm going to get the most output, but that's not really how it works. Comfort is a really big key to our pumping, so making sure that we are comfortable. If your nipple feels like it's getting pulled off every suction, you're not going to be comfortable. So start low and then work your way up till you find a setting, suction level that feels comfortable and is giving you a good output. And just remember, these are wearable breast pumps. You may not get the same output with a wearable that you do with, say, a Spectra, or even a wearable pump that has more settings on it. This is a very basic, very manual in terms of changing your settings. It doesn't have built-in rhythms or an app with built-in rhythms, so you may not get the same output as what you do with other wearable breast pumps, but that doesn't mean that you can't manually change these and try. The other one is pumping time. You may just be one of those people that needs a little bit more time with your pumping session to extract your milk. It may be 20 minutes. You may be somebody that needs 30. Have a try, see if any extra time makes a difference. I wouldn't go over the 30 minutes. That starts becoming a very long pumping session, but try it out and see how you go. All right. If your pump is suddenly not turning on, what can you do? Check your battery. You do have a little icon on your pump itself that will tell you your battery level. If it's flashing, it's on low on battery and you will need to charge it. There's a USB-C port on the side for that. Also check to make these connection points are actually nice and clean. There's nothing blocking it. Maybe you've got a splash of milk. Make sure it's nice and clean. Sometimes you might even just need to change a charger. It could be as simple as your charger is no longer working. So keep that in mind. If your pump suddenly stops working, comes with an automatic 30-minute shutdown. So don't be alarmed if after 30 minutes it suddenly turns off. It is designed for that. If you have one side that's not working, but the other one is, try swapping out your pump parts, see if that makes a difference. It could be just time to replace that diaphragm and the attached valve. It could also just be your pump motor has worn out, so maybe it's to do with your parts or maybe it's your pump motor itself. Try testing one on the other and see if you can troubleshoot it that way. There is no app connectivity with this pump. So if you're trying to connect it to the Medela family app, you can't. There is no app connectivity with this pump. If you find yourself having pain or discomfort while you're pumping, check the flange size. We don't want the friction with your nipple rubbing against the side. We don't want to be drawing in our areola with too large of a flange size. That's normally one of the biggest ones if we're finding our pumping uncomfortable. Again, want to make sure we start low on that suction strength. If it's too high, it may just be uncomfortable because the suction is too strong for you. And then check your positioning. We want to make sure when we're putting our pump on, we lean forward slightly, pop our nipple up and around so we've got it nice and centrally aligned when we move our pump up and secure it with our pumping bra. If it's not quite in, you might find that you're rubbing against the bottom. We just want it that nice centrally. And then if your pump is still not working, you have gone through these troubleshooting tips. Keep in mind these pumps wearables in general, they do have a pump motor life. It's normally around the 500-hour mark. So if you've been pumping multiple times a day on a regular basis, you may find that you've just worn through your pump motor life. If your pump's still relatively new and it's not working, you've tried the troubleshooting tips, especially making sure that our parts are on really firm and secure, then it might be time to contact Medela and talk to their help support to see what they can do. All right, I hope this video has helped. If you have had any of these issues and you found a solution, I'd love to hear about it. If you need any help or you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. If you've enjoyed this video, love a thumbs up. It really does help this content get seen by other pumping mums. And if you want more videos like this, hit that subscribe. Cheers.